Hi guys, it's Miss Brooks. This is episode 4 of Social Studies. This is Friday's assignment for our first week being gone due to COVID-19. I hope you guys are staying safe in your houses. You guys are washing your hands, making sure you're eating well, getting exercise. I do want to put emphasis on that because, again, we have to stay healthy for ourselves and for others on top of that. So in the last video, you should have watched, which was the reading video. You should have gone over what you would have done for figurative language. If you want to show me a picture to prove that you actually did it, that is awesome. And I need you guys to do that. If not, just tell me that you did it so I know what to look for. When we start getting into ancient Egypt, which we already are, but today is a significant starter day. Big reason we're getting into the mythology portion. Now, if you thought Greek and Roman mythology was was crazy, ancient Egypt is not going to get better just because, again, this is myth. They are not true. Because I know some of you guys are going to be like, oh man, like what? You guys are going to try and justify absolutely everything, which mythology, we can't justify absolutely everything, but we are trying to understand what their religion was like in ancient Egypt and what they believed to be true. Okay, we're just going to go over some of the ancient Egyptian deities this episode. Again, you should be going through your slides either through Google Classroom, and I can see if you did it or not, or on paper. So this is the assignment you will be doing today. We're going to be going over some of these. Some of them look very, very similar, so you're going to have to really pay attention as far as what goes where, because these two look very similar. These two look very similar. Okay? I want you to really dig deep in here. And the number one god that we will discuss today, we're going to discuss, 7. We're going to do 7 of them today. I know for Greek mythology, we went over 14, I believe, 13 or 14. We're doing 7 today. So kind of have, these are some of the more important ones that you will see in a lot of myths and justifications as to how the Egyptians lived. So make sure you're really paying attention. The number one god on here that I do want to mention, he is known as the supreme ruler of all the gods and of every life, as they said. He's not in this one. As you can tell, there's only 6, but we will go over the most important one, which I will argue is probably one of my favorites. And that is Ra, and it's just Ra. Simple as that. So Ra was the ultimate sun god. Now, in ancient Egyptian mythology, there were a lot of deities that could eventually rise to a form of a sun god. Ra was the definite, this is the big man. So when we talked about Greek mythology, Zeus was big man. Now we're into ancient Egypt. Ra is big man. You don't want to mess with Ra. Ra is the most important. He is the supreme ruler of all the gods. You will see a lot of times he has the head of a falcon or an eagle, and you'll see a big red circle above him majority of the time. That is the sun disk, just to tell you, hey, I'm a sun god. I'm the big man. So don't mess with me. So if you see, because some people get him confused with Horus, which we'll talk about Horus in a second. But the big difference between them is Ra will have the big sun disk on top of him. Horus will not. So that kind of helps you out. At one point in mythology, Ra decided he needed to become stronger. And his only form that he could do it to become stronger was to fuse with another god. And then he decided to fuse with a powerful god named Amun. We don't know much about Amun, but together that created the stronger deity Amun-Ra. We will learn about more mythology with Amun-Ra later, but Ra's lasted a long time. I just like regular Ra. He has really funny, he has very funny mythological stories that go behind him. It was said that Ra created all forms of life. So that kind of makes sense. Whereas Zeus, he hired some of the neutral titans to create the humans. Ra did it himself. With Ra, there is one story that we'll get to later on where this is another thing that I want to preference. The gods, in Greek mythology, they really didn't age. They stayed the same age forever. Ra and all the Egyptian gods, they look like they aged, but they still keep living, if that makes sense. So Ra eventually becomes like really old and crusty, as you guys like to kind of put it. And he goes a little crazy, a little senile. And he's just like, people aren't worshiping me like they used to. And his father, which is Nun, which we'll get to Nun in a second. But Nun was kind of like, all right, this is what you need to do. You need to go back. You need to sit on your throne. You need to pull out your eyeball. So he did that. His eyeball turned into a war goddess named Sekhmet. And we will get to Sekhmet on Monday or Tuesday of next week. Sekhmet has the head of a lion, which a lot of you guys would really like. Considering you really like Aries sometimes, Sekhmet would be a really cool one. So Ra, again, falcon head, human body, and he has the sun disk on top. Just putting that out there. The next one is Isis. Now, parents, if you're watching too, this is ancient Egypt mythology. It is not the group that we associate it with today. It wasn't even formed. It wasn't named after this goddess or anything. I just want to clarify that they came from two separate sources. So just bear with me on that one. Isis, she was known as the mother goddess. So she was very nurturing towards many of the citizens, especially those who were in need. She was known as the protector of those who were in need. She is usually depicted as a woman with a headdress. So you see a lot of the pharaohs with this huge headdress that kind of like comes over and it has stripes on it and it kind of comes to the front. She has a headdress, but one that's shaped like a throne, which is really, really neat. It's a completely different picture than what we usually think. She does not have the wings. It will be someone else, a different goddess that has the wings, and we'll get to her in a second. Isis, she is married to Osiris, and we'll get to Osiris next, but her and Osiris married, and funny enough, they had a son named Horus. And we'll get to Horus too. So again, it's kind of a family dynamic. So remember, Isis is the mother goddess, goddess of magic, families, women, mainly families who were really in need. She was the protector. She was very nurturing. Osiris, let's get to him. Osiris, before he was the god of the afterlife, or the underworld equivalent, he was actually god of harvesting. So a lot of his mythology is teaching the people how to cultivate the land near the Nile, and how to cultivate the land, and how to feed their people. And he was becoming even more popular than all the other gods. They were even thinking at a point to replace Ra with Osiris, because Osiris was like very, very popular. And another god that did not like that, Ra was kind of indifferent. He was like, oh well, they still can't beat me. One god in particular wanted to challenge that, and that was Set. Set was the god of chaos and storms. Imagine that. Basically, as part of the mythology goes, Set wanted to rule over absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. He wanted to be the next ruler, next pharaoh, next top god. So one day he decided to make a sarcophagus, and he's like, let's just say Osiris, he was crazy with partying, because Set was like, okay, Osiris likes these things, let's party. Set made the sarcophagus, and he's like, all right, whoever can fit in this sarcophagus can win a prize. And of course, Osiris was like, all right, I'm into that. He gets into the coffin, Set chains it up, makes sure Osiris dies, and throws it in the Nile. And because of that instance, Osiris is now sent to rule over the underworld and the afterlife, which he didn't really mind it, but he wanted to see his wife a little more, obviously. So Set, of course, did not like Osiris being so popular. Osiris is another one of my favorites. Just because he was very, again, he was much like Isis. He was very nurturing towards the people, and actually very accepting, where a lot of the gods in ancient Greece were actually very aggressive towards people and did not really like the way they did things. But Osiris and Isis did have a child, and we're going to get into him. That's Horus. So you guys knew the Eye of Horus. Some people call it the Eye of Ra, just because, again, Ra and Horus look very similar with their falcon heads. Horus is the god of the sky, later becoming part sun god. Obviously, he probably takes after Ra. He is the royal protector. So that means the pharaohs, the nobles, he protects over all of them, which makes sense. And then, because of this, Horus is just like, Set, why did you do that to my dad? That is not okay. Him and Set have a huge battle, and both wars are waged and everything like that, and it will be Horus that comes out on top. Set, obviously, he tries, just doesn't get what he wants. Horus, again, does not have the circle disc on top. And Horus will actually go on to have 4 children. I want to preference that again. 4 children. And you learned about something yesterday that also had 4. I'm going to preference that again. Let me get this out. Dropping everything. It's also on your notes too. I know there's 2 shown here, but the canopic jars. So one holds the stomach, one holds the intestines, one holds the lungs, and the other for the liver. The canopic jars were representations of Horus's sons. So Horus, when he has his 4 kids, he's like, all right, I'm sending you guys to work for your grandpa, for Osiris, and you're going to help him in the afterlife. When people transfer over, you're going to help with that transition and that approval. So they needed approval in order to get to the afterlife that they wanted. So all of them were representations and helping him. So that's another myth that is actually really neat and really cool, just connecting the two. So obviously one had the head of a baboon, one of a jackal, one of a human, and then the other, I believe, an eagle? Yes. Yes. Yep. The weird one is the baboon, and that one's called Happy. Yes, he named his son Happy, which is great. Just think of it like that. It's funny because the journey of Ra, which we'll get to again much later on, one of the kingdoms in the underworld, he visits Osiris and Horus's 4 kids that help him along the way. So again, it's really cool. The next one is very, 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 very popular. Most people, when they think Egyptian mythology, they think of this god, and that's Anubis. You guys saw in the symbols and artifacts the statue of Anubis with the jackal, kind of the dog with the pointed ears. That is Anubis. Anubis has that head, but a human body. He is the god of embalming, mummification. So he kind of oversees that process of, okay, let's say the pharaoh died. They go through the embalming, the mummification portion. They put him in the sarcophagus, place him in the tombs, and Anubis will help transfer to the afterlife. So embalming is the same thing as preserving the body, making sure it doesn't decay at a really, really fast rate. And then mummification is just the rest of the process and journey to the afterlife. They think Anubis as really, really scary because really you could see him as, well, that's just morbid and it's about death. But the Egyptians loved Anubis because of their association and their love for the afterlife, what they believed in. So just keep in mind that things that we think are very morbid and sad now weren't as sad back then because obviously it was really different and their beliefs were different. So that just goes to show you, never judge a book by its cover. Never just assume someone's religion is bad or what they think is bad. It's what they believed, and you can say all you want that, well, their belief was dumb. Again, what they believed in was entirely what they thought, and you could say, hey, I like Kentucky Wildcats, and some of you can say, hey, I like Louisville. But you can't say the other one's stupid, because really they're both in the same state. Like, what's the point? So, really, it was appropriate for that time and place, and now that we have grown as society, we can move forward with that and use the knowledge that we're learning about in the past to help us in the future. One more thing, there was one more god on your, goddess really, on your match it slide. This one's not as popular at all as the others will be. It's Ma'at. Again, there's the little asterisk, and there's 2 A's, so Ma'at. You gotta remember how to say it. There's 2 A's. So there's like the ah, you pause, and then another ah. So ma'at. She is represented as wings. So she is the one that has the very beautiful rainbow wings, and she is the goddess of truth. More so wisdom and truth, but she does a lot more with truth than wisdom, because there's so many Egyptian gods that we still haven't gone over, and some that are not as popular. So again, just bear with me. I know you guys are really interested in mythology, and if you have any questions, please feel free to message me. If you want to Skype with me or something, Google Hangout, just let me know to get some clarification. I know I look like a mess right now. It's because I am still just, I'm staying comfy, okay? Sometimes you gotta stay comfy in these kind of days. And you'll see me wear the same thing in different videos. It's because I'm making these videos in bulk, just to get them done and out of the way so I can have a full day or so to answer your questions. So that'll be it for this week. Again, for social studies, you are just doing this. So you can either draw the arrows, or you can cut out these little portions and stick them on if you're doing the paper copy. Or if you can do it through your slides, just do it through your slides. I think they're easier that way. So have a good weekend and stay safe.